Hello BTS lovers, how could a world superstar like Jungkook, known for his impeccable image and mental strength of steel, suddenly show his most vulnerable and human side amid the rigors of military exercises? What really happened to make Jimin, his best friend and groupmate, cry in silence? An incident that not only shook his military colleagues, but also shook the emotions of millions of fans around the world. But behind this heartwarming and awe-inspiring story, an important question arises that we simply cannot ignore. Did all this really happen as reported, or was it a narrative deliberately formed to create a sensation and maintain the media spotlight? As the story of Jungkook helping Jimin spread across platforms from TikTok to YouTube Shorts to long Twitter threads, the public reaction was divided. Most felt inspired and touched, but not a few began to question its validity. Is this a fact that really comes from within the military environment, or is it just a testimony without verification raised for the sake of virality? If it is true that Jungkook's actions violated military norms, why was there not a single official report or clarification from the relevant institutions? Why does it only appear as an anonymous quote from an inside source? Who can be sure that this narrative is not part of celebrity image management that is indeed designed to arouse public sympathy? Are we, as consumers of information, too easily swept up by emotions without critically filtering the data? Let's take a closer look together. The articles and social media posts that bring up this story generally use very emotional and dramatic language. The style of presentation is deliberately heartfelt, as if wanting to form a certain perception of these two figures. In modern journalism, we know that news framing largely determines how an audience perceives an event. So, the question, is this really a fact report, or is it just a narrative construction that blurs the line between reality and expectation? As discerning readers, we need to ask, who benefits from this news? Is this a purely human story, or is it part of a carefully crafted communication strategy to maintain fan loyalty and an artist's image amid their time away from the entertainment world? We must not forget that social media today is a fertile field for the dissemination of half-true or even completely false information. With algorithms that prioritize viral content and attract clicks, emotional information like this has a high potential to spread widely, even if it doesn't necessarily have a strong factual foundation. Therefore, it is important for us to ask, has the source of this information been verified by a neutral party? Are there any visual evidence or official testimonials that can support this claim? Some netizens also began to highlight how this story was almost too perfect to be true. A soldier helps his best friend secretly, breaking the norm, and yet is forgiven by superiors for sincerity? In the real world, actions like these usually do not escape sanctions or at least official reports. Does this story really reflect what happened, or is it just a piece of the story that has gone through a process of romanticization in order to touch the hearts of fans? Have we ever considered that perhaps we are being conditioned to believe, not given room to ask? Even if this story is true, we still need to ask, is this kind of news delivered proportionately, or is it exaggerated in order to arouse our emotions? Are we being faced with reality or an illusion wrapped in perfect narrative packaging? We know that BTS and its members have a very strong management team in managing public image. They know how to build emotional closeness with fans, a legitimate strategy in the entertainment world, but still need to be treated with a critical attitude. Therefore, this question becomes very relevant. Is this narrative purely from eyewitnesses, or is it part of the storytelling controlled by the agency? We, the editorial team, receive this information from various public channels: TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and other platforms that mix facts with opinions, personal testimonials with collective assumptions. And herein lies the challenge. Can we sort out which are the facts, which are the imagination of a public that loves its idols too much? In the digital age, news can be spread without filters, and perceptions can be formed without the need for evidence. So, it is very important for all of us to not only be passive readers, but to be active, reflective, and skeptical audiences of all forms of information, especially if the information touches our emotional side. Because often, what touches the heart is not the truest, but the most cleverly composed. We are not saying that this story is a lie. We're not saying that Jungkook and Jimin didn't experience a moment of friendship as told. But we invite you to ask, what is not said from this story? What is not preached? Who is not interviewed? Are we willing to criticize the news even if it's about an idol we love? Or do we choose to trust them because it makes us feel closer to them? Behind the tight fence of the 5th Division, the place where young men are trained to be tough soldiers, an unexpected event captured the attention of many. Jungkook, who has been known as BTS's Golden Magne for his extraordinary abilities in all fields, suddenly took an unusual step and was even considered a risk in military discipline. This move not only changed the views of many people about him, but also triggered a deep emotional reaction from Jimin, his best friend since adolescence. The incident stemmed from extreme physical training. Strenuous resistance, training under the scorching sun. Some of the soldiers began to show signs of fatigue, and one of them was Jimin. Although known to be tough, his smaller body compared to other soldiers was clearly experiencing tremendous pressure. A reliable source from within the 5th Division mentioned that when Jimin began to lag behind and seemed to be struggling, everyone fell silent. However, what happened next was completely unexpected, disregarding the coach's gaze and the unwritten rules in the military world that emphasize self-reliance. Jungkook runs up to Jimin and begins to help him complete the obstacle course. He lifted Jimin's shoulders, took over some of the burden of his backpack, and even pushed him physically when Jimin's strength began to run low. Some of the other soldiers were shocked and thought they would both get a hard reprimand. But the opposite happened. Their commander, having seen sincerity and determination in Jungkook's eyes, allowed it to happen. Typically, such an attitude is considered a violation of the ethics of military discipline. But we can all see that it's not about breaking the rules. It's about brotherhood, said a soldier who witnessed the incident firsthand. What made this event so touching was Jimin's reaction afterwards. In the dormitory, when it was getting late and the training activity was over, several roommates watched Jimin sitting quietly in the corner of the room. He didn't say much, just looked down with puffy eyes. When asked if he was okay, his answer was very simple. I didn't expect Jungkook would do that for me. That sentence is enough to make the atmosphere of the room quiet. The soldiers, who initially only knew the two as celebrities, began to understand that the relationship between them was more than just industry colleagues. They are best friends who have been through ups and downs since their teens, and that moment in the military is living proof of the depth of their bond. Jungkook's change of attitude began to become a conversation. A coach admitted that since the incident, Jungkook has seemed more introspective. He becomes more attentive to his colleagues, more actively helps without being asked, and more often remains alone after training as if there is something he is deeply pondering. Jungkook, who has always been known to be very focused on himself when it comes to performance, is now showing another side, empathy. Some people refer to it as a sudden change in behavior. But for those who know Jungkook personally, this is the side of him that has been hidden behind the pressure to always look perfect. Jimin, in a letter sent to his family and quoted anonymously by a relative, wrote, "I see Jungkook from a different point of view now. Not just as a great singer or groupmate, but as someone who dares to put others above himself, even in the most difficult conditions."